Episode number 2, Mark Jones.
Episode 2.
Yes.
How's it going?
Good.
The market has spoken.
Market has spoken.
Yeah.
And there's a major headline today.
Yeah, huge headline.
What is it?
$250 million headline. Home Services, who was the last holdout on the Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit, and what would have been carrying the remainder of the balance due on that, which was 4-point-something billion, settled for $250 million, which is the largest amount of any of the settlement numbers. Keller Williams was at 70 million.
70 million.
Remax, I want to say, was 65 million.
Yeah.
Something like that. And there was another one that was somewhere around 40, I think.
Yeah, I think 40 was the smallest one that I saw.
Yeah.
250 was definitely by far the largest. The article said that they weighed their options. This was the best course forward because the remainder of that sum is a very large sum.
Right.
250 is a bargain in that case, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, if you're looking at a 4-point-something billion invoice, I would take a $250 million
yeah.
Deal any day.
Yeah. And it was payable over 4 years is what I saw.
Yeah, I think they all are too. The NAR settlement is the same, payable over 4 years. I think yesterday was the first payment due on the Keller Williams one. I don't know if it's all of them, but I believe yesterday was the first payment was due, which was hefty.
Yes. So what do we think is going to happen with this? Now that we know that the settlement is likely going to pass, every company has at this point settled.
Right.
What's different about the last time we had this conversation and now?
I think more clarity. Just this week, the court gave a preliminary approval to the settlement, which means they looked at it, they looked at the terms, and they feel like it's overall fair to the plaintiffs, the defendants, and the general public. So I think now we're a little bit more certain that the settlement is going to be approved by the court because we have early indication that it is. And we now know that the last holdout has settled, so there's not going to be any situation where they take it to an appeal and they win. Right. So that possibility is now off the table.
Correct.
I think we've all thought was going to happen anyway, but it's just more certain now.
Yeah. Over and above everything, this gives us confirmation that the way we have been doing business needs to change. And we talked a lot about last time what's going to change for us to run our businesses properly, such that now, come July, we're moving forward with this. And that's about as high of a guarantee or percentage of probability that you can get.
For sure. And in Georgia, next week is May 1st is traditionally the date when the first revisions of the Georgia Association of Realtor forms comes out. So I'm curious whether the GAR forms will release a brand new set of contracts that are amended to address the settlement and the resulting terms, or if there'll be a typical May 1 revision, which is commas and spaces and correcting misspellings and things like that, and then they'll issue another version later. So the Forms Committee has been very tight-lipped around this.
Yes.
In fact, I've been told that they signed confidentiality agreements, that they have NDAs, they cannot disclose what the Form Committee has talked about and what's happening.
Okay.
So,
and they have also not been able to share whether or not there's going to be 2 revisions or 3 revisions or anything like that. So we don't really know what's going to happen next week. My guess is you hold it until there's closer to June, July. Because have they really had enough time to take that into consideration in order to improve all this?
I don't know. I did talk to, or I shouldn't say I talked to him, he talked to me, Seth Weissman. I was in a course he was doing about the commission lawsuits and the world of commissions around that. And he made it sound like a lot of these decisions had already been made. But again, very aloof and very non-specific in his comments. So, it'll remain to be seen. But the one thing I have heard is that the agreement to work with buyer as customer form in Georgia is going to change, and it will now have a commission on it. A place for you to secure compensation from that customer. So that's an improvement.
Absolutely.
We didn't have that.
Absolutely.
Before. And the more I think about it, it's becoming less and less of an earth-shattering deal as we go, because everyone's making distinctions or clarifications or adjustments to adapt to this new environment. For example, FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac came out last week.
That was, yeah.
It was on Friday, and said, hey, that 3, 6, or 9% seller concessions that we put on loans, depending on how much is being put down and what kind of loan it is, on the seller commissions, the cap on the seller concessions, rather. So that cap on seller concessions will not include commissions. So commissions paid by a seller will not be counted towards that cap. So in other words, a seller can pay commission and pay 3, 6, or 9%
concessions,
whatever the loan normally had in concessions, and there won't be a problem.
Yeah. And I think that's huge, right? Because there can always be something that is found either in an inspection or anything like that needs to be addressed.
Right.
An agent who has secured compensation should not be penalized because there's an issue found as a result of an inspection that now means, well, what happens to my commission? So I think that was really big. I think we're waiting on VA to figure out what they're going to do. But for the vast majority of the loan types that we do, about 80% or so, those loans have now been cleared in the sense that there can be compensation in addition to concessions, effectively raising the limit that can be given. So
yeah, which is huge. Like I said, I think that was one of our initial concerns, was like, gosh, how are we going to be able to have a seller pay all of this if the buyer also needs closing costs and there are repair concessions and things like that. So, slowly but surely, all of these little details are working themselves out. And I think we talked about that last time. Anytime something changes, it creates a problem that was unintended. So then someone has to come along and fix that new problem, and then that'll create another problem, and so on. Things are moving through the system the way they're supposed to. And actually, for the government to have come out with, even though it was really more of a clarification, for them to have acted that quickly, I was encouraged by. It shows that they're paying strong attention to this lawsuit.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. So those were the two biggest updates since we last made an episode, which was, hey, Fannie Mae addressed these concerns. And as of today, there's now the holdout has gone, right? Clear indication as to where the industry is moving. What is the next thing that we should be aware of? What should we be doing as agents to make sure that we're preparing for the new way of real estate as we know it across the country, but in Georgia, not a whole lot different than what we should have already been doing?
Again, I think it's working on your value proposition, right? Having a real clear understanding of the value you bring to the table, and not just what an agent does, but what you do, right? So not only what a skilled agent brings to the table, but your personal experience, your background, your skill set, which is going to be different from mine, which is going to be different from the next person's, right? So there's a value proposition that agents bring, and there's a unique value proposition that you bring as an individual. So having a clear understanding of both of those and being able to articulate it is huge. And one of the things I'm recommending to all of our agents is creating a menu of services.
What is that?
A menu of services is offering different pricing options and associating different amounts of work with it. For example, we've all been with a client who, let's say, is selling a property and buying a property. And there's a lot of times that we will discount the listing if they're also giving us the sale, because it's a package deal. So if that is happening, you could spell that out as one scenario that you can offer a different commission, right? If a buyer comes to me and they say, I want to buy my landlord's house, I've already talked to them, we just need someone to write it up. I can offer that, hey, if I'm not going to represent you as a buyer or the landlord as a seller, and I'm just writing it up, I can act as a transaction broker and do it for a different percentage than I would normally represent a buyer for or a seller.
Absolutely. And in that scenario where if you are representing a buyer and a seller, just put the contract together, the amount of work that you have is limited, right? The amount of risk you have is limited because you're representing someone as a customer, not as a client, right? And that's
I would say working with, not representing.
Yeah. And so the fee can go down based on the amount of work that is associated, right? And so the menu of services really highlights identify what you're going to do and give people options based on the tiers of service that they want to select from you.
Correct. Yeah, and if on the listing side, I might offer a basic level of services at one commission rate, and then I might say, hey, if you would like me to coordinate all of the vendors and the work that needs to be done to get the home ready, let's say it's an out-of-state seller, and this is a property they haven't seen in years, so they're going to need it cleaned up and painted and repairs done and all that. I can do that for an additional fee, right? So for a higher rate of commission or for a flat fee, either way. So I think as listing agents and as buyer's agents, you need to think through all the different scenarios and all the work you do and come up with a pricing for it. And here's the cool thing about it. I think in the past, we did a lot for the same that a brand new agent with no experience does when they walk into their first transaction and do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So we've brought a lot of additional value in the past for a average commission. So now I think what this has done is it's freed up a lot of people to go, hey, if I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z, I'm going to charge for it.
Absolutely.
And these are the things that I bring to the table, and here's what I recommend in your situation, Mr. Seller or Mr. Buyer.
And what we've realized is consumers want options, and some of them want everything. Some of them just want the basics.
Right.
Do you have options for that client that you can present that says, hey, if you want to pay this, here's what you get? And if that's what they expect to get and that's what they want to pay for, then they should be able to do that. We heard this yesterday in the mastermind, which I think Ryan was saying this. It's okay to offer a package where it's lower than what you normally charge every other person, but it's not okay for you to do the same amount of work that you charge for on the top of the bundle, right? Nowhere else can you go and get everything for the cheapest price.
Correct.
You can get the cheapest price, but it comes with a different level of service.
Right. And there have been discount companies in our market and most markets forever. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're offering a limited service for a limited cost. There's also nothing wrong with offering a premium service for a premium cost. Right. So I think it's really important for people to get real clear on all the different options that they can offer and what those look like from a pricing perspective. And if you can do that, what I've found is when consumers have choice, they negotiate less with you. They will ask you less to reduce a commission if you've already come to them with 3 or 4 options. Right. If you come to them with one option, they don't have any control, and it's human nature to want some sort of control over that.
I don't know who said this a long time ago. I picked this up. If you give a consumer a yes or no option, they're likely going to go with a no.
Correct.
If you give them option 1, option 2, option 3, they're now inclined to pick an option instead of just saying no. So options are always good.
I learned this a long time ago, back in probably 2004 maybe, 2005-ish. I had a condo development that I was representing. And we had multiple units, townhomes, that were identical, like 2 end units and then 3 interior units in the center. The 3 interior units, there was literally nothing different about them, right? So you have all this inventory that you have to get rid of, and you have to price it in a way that makes people want to buy it. When we put it all at the same price, it sat. People couldn't decide between A, B, or C, so they chose not to decide. So when we had that aha and said, okay, let's change this up, this is the one that has a better view of that part of the city skyline. This is closer to the south-facing side. Like, we just made up whatever we
features
could
and benefits.
Identify that unit as different. How does it differentiate itself from others, right? And when we did that, we staggered the pricing up appropriately, with the value we assigned to that, and they sold right away because people knew, okay, I don't want that one. I want the one with
Sure.
better view. It was really just identifying, okay, even though they're identical units, there's slightly different views. There's
Sure.
slightly different perspectives on all of them. One, we painted one so we could say this is the one with the designer paint.
Nice.
So just having those little things helped people get off the fence and make a decision.
Yeah.
So
They get to pick ultimately, and it was like, okay, I pick this. Great.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that choice, right? Consumers want choice, and our job is to make it easy for them to make those decisions. And what I had done in the past with pricing 3 units at the same price was make it harder for the consumer to make a decision.
Sure.
When you have a menu of services and you have very different value propositions associated with each, then it's a lot easier for them to say, okay, I want this one.
Sure.
How many times have you automatically go, no, I want the best one?
Often.
Yeah.
Right? Because in my mind, I don't want to go through which one I want the best one. And that's what a small percentage of population is going to do, allowing you to get paid more because you're going to offer them more. And that's likely going to be more than the average agent, but also more than some of the other packages that you offer.
And again, you could be brand new, but if you get really clear on all this stuff and you present it confidently, then you can still command a higher price. At the end of the day, though, I think this is going to make it so that consumers have more choice. And again, I think that's a good thing all around.
Yeah. Here's an important question that we've talked about off camera. When should you present your value proposition, and when should you give them options?
That's a great question.
Is it when I'm writing the offer, Mark?
Hell no. When they say that, hell no. So I think as soon as you meet someone is your opportunity to start talking about your value proposition, but also to start demonstrating it.
Sure.
Right? If you're in your first meeting with someone and you're walking through here's what I do, here's how the process works, here's my process, here are my commission options. If someone does negotiate their commission, that is your first opportunity to demonstrate your negotiating skills and why they should pay you more. So the conversation is, thanks for asking me to discount my commission, Mr. Seller. I don't blame you for asking. I would do the same thing. But here's the thing. You're hiring me to negotiate on your behalf. If I were to reduce my commission simply because you asked, then and that's my money, how effective am I going to be when it's your money? So I would be really leery of hiring an agent that would roll over and reduce their commission simply because you asked. Secondly, I know what I'm worth. I have 20-something years experience. I can do this job in my sleep, and it is not easy, and I have the experience to warrant this price.
Right.
So would you like to get started today, or do you need another hour or so to think?
And when you give them that option too, if you are giving option 1, 2, 3 based on the level of commission that you want or the level of service that you want, Mark, you can have a discounted option, right? You just can't expect me to do all of the things that the Cadillac of the options is going to bring. So it's totally fair. Do you want to pick this, or do you want this level of service? Because that's what's going to cost.
Right. And that's where it's great to be able to say, oh, you want a discount? Awesome.
Yep.
I have a discounted program here, and we call it the limited service plan.
Yep.
And it's this much.
Yep.
So I think if you have that, then you have an answer for the person who wants a discounted commission. But again, as Ryan Graham said yesterday, you're not offering a discount commission for a full service experience. And that's what I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing, agents have, through lead aggregators like Zillow and Redfin, Realtor, all these things, you get leads and you immediately go show a house, and that part of the business is likely going to change because you now have to talk about, hey, I need an agreement in place first. Here's what we're going to do. Once that is signed, then you can go into your value proposition and what you expect, or what the client expects from you and the level of service they want. Then you go into an agreement and say, we're going to do business together. Here's how we're going to do that.
Right. And I think there are going to be the people who don't do the right thing and don't get that form signed
right
when they're supposed to. And there are also non-realtors out there.
Sure.
Real estate agents that are not bound by the rules of NAR and the code of ethics that goes with it. So there will be people out there that'll just show the house, right?
Sure.
My thing is, I'm not going to show a house to someone that I haven't had a conversation with and confirm that they understand how I get paid, that they understand how this works, and they're willing to sign that before I get in the car.
And also that they can afford the house that you're about to show them.
Yeah.
Because that's part of it, right? The process is, hey, let's have a conversation, decide we're going to do business together. Let me get you paired up with our lenders so you can go through and get a pre-approval such that we can be competitive when you find the right house.
Right.
Because depending on the market, you might have a house that sits for several days and you have time to be able to do that, or it's listed today and it goes under contract today. Right. And that happens more times than not. So having an advisor tell you that these are the things that need to happen before we go look for houses is the professional you want to work with.
Absolutely. And you're setting them up for success, right?
Yeah.
Because not doing that is, okay, let's play that out. I'm go and meet them. I have a conversation with them. They want to make an offer. So then I have to get them in touch with a lender.
Yep.
I have to get them approved. I have to make an offer without a pre-approval letter. I might have a pre-qualification, but there's no way you're getting approved.
It's not going to fly.
The same day.
Yeah.
So that offer is not going to win if you're competing with other offers. So you're setting them up for failure. So save everyone the time, energy, and frustration, and set them up for success from day one. And if you can help them get set up for success and help them understand why this is important to do, then they'll be a loyal client.
Yeah.
What most agents do is they just say, no, I'm not going to do that. You have to do this. And they don't take the time to explain why.
Sure. And they sometimes they don't do it, or they don't ask for it or guide them through the process because they're afraid of rejection. Oh, they're going to go find someone who's going to do it. Maybe, but is that the client that I really want to work with? They're coming to you as the professional and you're supposed to guide them, not let them run the show. And that's what usually happens if you're not doing any of that.
And we know the process. We're the ones who have been through the experiences. Right. We've done the education. We've learned all the mistakes that you can make. And skipping steps in a process is never a good idea. When you're baking a cake, or better yet, a souffle, like there's a certain order of things have to happen.
Sure.
And like you can't just start at the end.
Yep.
You have to go step one before you go step two. So I feel like real estate's the same thing. We're the professionals. It's our job to say, hey, that's actually not how this works. Let's jump on a Zoom call and talk about how this works so I can set you up for success.
Yeah.
Because I want you, if you see this house, I want you to be able to get it.
And that's what the professional does. And I think more agents in our community are going to be able to start doing that because they understand rules are changing. Yeah.
And I think, again, in Metro Atlanta, we have a lot of really highly skilled agents. So I have a lot of faith that the agents, at least in our area that I'm familiar with, are going to rise to the challenge and get their value proposition down and learn how to communicate all of this stuff so that they're not jumping when someone calls.
Absolutely.
And I'll be honest, in 25 years, I've never seen it really end well when you jump when someone calls you because they're like, hey, I know we've never met. Will you show me this house? Like, generally, that person is not loyal, they're not serious, they're not ready. So there's a lot of education that has to happen and that kind of thing. So it's very rare that someone calls you out of the blue, wants to buy a particular house, and is ready to do something that day.
I've never seen it happen in my career, but I also think if you're calling a CPA or if you're calling any professional in a service industry, it likely is not going to happen that day. You likely might not even get on the calendar for that week, let alone that day.
If it's your doctor, it's maybe not this quarter.
Yeah. So you've got to be able to show people, here's the process, here's how we're going to do it, and then you just got to stick to your guns, right? Some people will leave and not be okay with that. That's fine. You probably weren't going to get them to the closing table anyway.
They're looking at you as just a means to access a property. They can call Zillow and do that.
Yeah.
They can call Redfin and do that.
Absolutely.
If they're calling you as a real estate professional, you want a client that wants a real estate professional representing them.
Yes. Yes. So biggest takeaway as of now, about 2-3 weeks of the information updates that we had is work on your value proposition. That's what you said.
Absolutely.
Work on your menu of services.
Correct.
And literally write down everything you do and how can you best offer that in the packages that you determine are best for you.
And when you write down everything you do, don't stop there. Write it down and then ask yourself, what does this do for the client? What's in it for them, right? Like the old WFM, what's in it for me? Look at each item that you do. How does that benefit your client? And then that's part of your value proposition.
Yeah. And be able to explain that.
Yeah.
This is the first time where you're literally going to have to interview each time that you're going to take a client. And you're interviewing them just as much as they might be interviewing you, but you've got all of the things you need to do,
right,
or that you're going to have to present with you at all times.
And it's an educational opportunity for you to help them understand the process, help them understand how you work, help them understand why you charge what you charge and what your experience is. And frankly, it's an opportunity to brag a little bit.
Absolutely.
In a very consultative, humble way. But
humble brags.
You're still saying, look, this is how I do things. And it gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge, demonstrate your skill. Like I said, if they're asking you to reduce your commission, that's a great opportunity for you to show exactly why you shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. That gives us homework out for about 3 months to work on before things change. Again, that summarizes menu of services and options for consumers to pick from. Anything else you want to add on to that?
No, just keep working on that stuff. And yes, I'll add one thing. Nothing is comfortable the first time you do it.
Very true.
So it's going to feel uncomfortable the first time you recite your value proposition or talk about why you get paid what you get paid. Practice it in the mirror, do it with a colleague, role play with each other, get comfortable with it, because you will get more comfortable as you repeat it.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. Jay's email on the 20%er this morning was talking about reps, and what it said was nothing is even remotely comfortable within 100 reps leads you to, okay, I understand it. And it doesn't really matter until you do 10,000 reps that you're an expert at it. So keep doing it, like Mark said.
Be an expert.
Yes.
Yeah. Mastery doesn't come easily. You have to practice.
Yeah. And that's it for this episode of
The Market Has Spoken.
This is Hersh Shah.
And I'm Mark Jones.
See you next time.